5:15, I'd like to call the Tuesday, February 27th, 2024 Economic Development Committee to order. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call has been taken.
Correct.
To need a motion to adopt the agenda.
Motion.
Motion by Bill, second by April to adopt the agenda. Is there any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Linda?
Aye.
Perfect.
Sorry, the mute was stuck.
Looking for a motion to approve the minutes for January 30th, 2024 and February 7th, 2024. Or you guys
Separate.
both separate?
Can I make a change to the January 30th, 2024 minutes? Under number 7, director's report, can we remove mindful movements yoga studio? That was in my notes, but not in my presentation, so I didn't technically report on them.
Which one was that?
Mindful movements yoga studio.
Okay, so that was in your notes then.
Right.
So we'll take that one out.
Yep.
Can do.
Thank you.
I know there was a question at council about locations. Did that get
Those
corrected?
addresses were corrected.
Okay.
Linda identified. Yep.
Perfect. Any other changes to the agenda or the minutes for January 30th, 2024?
I'll make a motion that we approve January 30th, 2024 minutes with that change.
Second. Motion by April, second by Hans to approve the January 30th, 2024 minutes. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Carried. Also, we have the February 7th, 2024 minutes.
Motion.
Second. Motion by April, second by Hans to approve those minutes. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Is there any public comment? Seeing no public comment, we'll move on to discuss ideas for downtown placemaking. I guess I was wondering if we could discuss the idea of contracting an architect to develop the area between John's Bar and Longevity, along with the parking area behind, as well as the parking area and park alongside the river into a venue area for festivals and events. The areas can be used for festival grounds, small pop-up concerts, rentals, theater evenings, movies, poetry, and much more, bringing in revenue for the entire city.
So we're talking about parcel 203, 205, and then, or are we talking 109? Did you say John's Bar? Because 207 is owned by John's, correct? Or just 211?
207 is owned by the owner of John's.
Or Wolfer Republic,
Yep, correct.
excuse me.
203 and 205 are owned by the city, and then this parcel here is owned by the city. And then we also have our parkland. So when Tim and I were talking about it, we suggested that we look at this as a macro approach instead of just
Sure.
looking at this single parcel, depending on how the whole area would kind of work with each other. That's kind of what the thought process was.
Basically, right now, the area is kind of an eyesore, and it'd be nice to fix it up, especially with the new development with SC Stewardship project right next door. I think it would attract, a place for people to, like I said, have activities, clean up the area. So I just thought maybe, and getting it off the ground is always challenging. If we went to go ahead and hire an architect to design something professionally, I thought maybe that'd be a way to get the ball rolling.
Is there gonna be a driveway coming out of Swiderski's?
Yes.
Coming out
In this area right here. And then there was another one somewhere mid mid-street here in Wolf River. They were not gonna have a driveway all the way to
Right,
Lime.
yeah.
So it was gonna be something directly on Wolf River and then something on the Smith Street extension in this area.
I'm not necessarily opposed to hiring an architect. It seems to me that we would then be getting one person's vision for the space as opposed to some kind of community input as to potential uses for the space. So I don't know if in order of operations, it would make sense to have some kind of a listening session or sessions or brainstorming type thing before we would go to an architect. Or if the process of hiring an architect would involve the architect conducting such a session or sessions. But it seems like there should be some opportunity for community input to that. Also, Swiderski got a pretty good deal on that lot. I wonder if there's a way that they would be willing to donate some services or product or something to kind of help develop that space as well for the city. As long as they're doing some work in the area, maybe they would do some more work. If it's like building a stage or something like that, you know.
I would like to expound on what Hans is saying as well. I do think that we need to get some more input from the community, do some kind of surveys, talk to the businesses downtown. The businesses, not just on North Water Street, but on Pearl Street as well, as to, a little bit more, put more out into the community about placemaking and see what kinds of things interest the public for those areas. What does the community want to see in those areas? Would they be interested in having a live stage? Would they be interested in having, an ice skating rink? What are they interested in seeing in that kind of a space in downtown? I just think that that's a great idea on Hans's part to really get some more community input before we start looking at hiring an architect who would give us their perception of what New London should do.
Not knowing this process, I imagine is it better to go with the community to say, hey, look, here's 35 ideas as an example, because many of us wouldn't be aren't creative enough to know what to do with some of the area, and then just inspire creativity.
I'm wondering, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'm wondering if maybe a survey may be helpful to kind of give them some, so I feel like if Chad and I were to walk downtown and say, hey, what would you like to see in this lot? They may go home and think about it and then come up with some great ideas, maybe creating some sort of survey to give them some time to think about some ideas.
Chad, do you mind if I approach the committee at some time?
They've been waiting piping, but go ahead.
This is it. All right. So with a project like this and having an architect or a planner come in and do a master site plan for a location like that, a ballpark estimate for a public engagement process, and that includes public meeting prep, and the meeting itself, having that person come to the commission and speak to you on what he's found, the online survey if desired, and then follow up and gathering of that information cost around $10,000. The master site plan itself would cost roughly $25,000 to $30,000. So just an idea of what you're looking at here for that location, because it's a lot more complex of a site with the traffic that's going to be coming in through and the parking issues and things like that with that street coming in between the two locations. I don't know that, how you're going to split up the two lots there with the thought of putting something on the two city lots in the middle of the buildings and then also down along the Berniger River Walk, kind of add some different thoughts to that than just planning a open space plan. So just a little feedback from,
Wouldn't we be better to wait till Swiderski's is done? So we got a better idea what it's gonna look like over there and what might fit in the area with Swiderski's being there. Maybe somebody, if we want to put something and they don't want to do it with Swiderski's being there. I would think we should wait a little bit on that.
I do agree with the public on this thing about getting the public's interest, because if you just go ahead and hire a consultant, they could go in a total opposite direction than everybody else is thinking. Or at least to say they could have some guidelines of what community thought of a few ideas. Narrow their search down a little bit.
and that's why it's typically an additional, fee to that process. The master plan itself is gonna include existing conditions of the area, the programming that could be involved there, the vetting alternatives, design, a summary document that will be in your hands. And then design and engineering and construction costs will be extra and additional fees.
About a year ago, we had some folks come on a grant, and we met with them at Familiar Grounds. They went through the downtown area and looked at potential uses of the alley. And that was a grant that we found. Could we spend a little bit of time digging around and seeing if there would be a similar grant for placemaking, given that it is something that people in communities are starting to focus on? Maybe we'd be able to tap into something like that because I mean, $10,000 for a couple of engagement sessions seems like a lot of money. But I mean,
It's valuable money.
I'm not questioning that. I'm just wondering if there's a different way to approach it.
There is opportunities through the state. Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation does have some placemaking opportunities out there. We got to figure out if that fits in with what we're looking at. But it's definitely something we can research more. Ginger hit the nail on the head with what your comments were, and everybody's comments about the public engagement piece. That's almost a norm in projects like this, to have the architect, facilitator, planner facilitate public engagement to get that public input. So you want them involved in the process too. We don't want to do a public, research and then give it to them. We'd rather have that person engaged in.
And oftentimes that's required in the grant. Is that your outside source is doing that work for you.
And one thing we would do is, if this is something that the committee would like to move forward with, we could put out a request for proposals to consultants. So you have multiple options to look at. So you're not just going with one firm and, run with it. Let's get some other options so this committee can look at those options with different type of architects and facilitators and pick what's going to be the best for who's got the best background. I mean, some facilitators and planners may have never done something like this. You probably want someone who's got some background in this type of work.
I would lean towards that mailer first, because anytime we try to have any public comment, nobody ever shows up. And then it always seems like then we get the backlash of, well, you didn't have any public comment. Well, you weren't here, so how could we explain it to you if nobody showed up? You know what I mean? At least with a mailer, they hopefully would have something that they could sit down on the kitchen table and in return or on the city site or something. I think you'd
Do a
get.
QR code, they'll take them to a survey. Something.
That's something that if you want to do it on an economical basis, you can consider putting that QR code as a flyer in the utility bills as a mailer, saying, hey, help us out, give us some public input. This is some things that we're looking at. Instead of the mailing, I mean, obviously.
Yep,
And
I probably misspoke there. I get it that you guys do all that computer stuff nowadays, but then in the old school, that's a mailer. You know what I mean?
So Chad, I have a question about the Swiderski site and the project there. Is that still on target? Their completion date, are they ahead of schedule because of the weather? What are we looking at there? Because I think Bob tapped into something there as well, in saying, if we're looking for community input, I think we might get better community input once the community sees what that is going to look like with that development completed as well.
Last
Maybe-
I heard, they're still on target for their initial plan, which is to start they did a bunch of site prep, as most people saw in the fall. They're planning
Yeah.
on doing their construction in the spring. And the last timeline that they gave me was to be open by June or July of 2025. So it's a 1.5 year construction process for their project. So, I mean, if you wouldn't want to wait, you'd have to wait to that point. Otherwise, they do have signs up. I'm sure everybody's kind of saw the signs showing outside what conceptually what the design is going to look like. And we've gotten conceptual drawings from them. So if you want to look at conceptually what it's going to look like, we have that.
Right.
If you want that beforehand, or if you want to wait till actually the building is up, then it would probably be, middle of 2025 before you're looking at doing something, if you're going to wait till after their construction is complete.
I have a question. Do we have the funds to, you said it was 25 grand with the listening session?
That's a high
Just
range.
Like ballpark,
And I'd
that's
say
just for the
15
idea
to, yeah.
portion. Do we have the funds to spend the 25 and then the additional funds for the actual development? Is
And the design
the design and
as well. Mhm.
do we have the funds to go from A to Z, I guess is what I'm asking.
Can you remember off the top of your head? It was like 135,000-ish.
We've been kind of building it up over years. We haven't been using all of our economic development monies over the years. So I think we set aside 40,000 or so a year, something like that.
Depending on how much is left over from the previous year, but yeah.
Yeah,
that's
it's about 130,000, I believe.
Gonna look at the finance agenda.
Put it that way, it seems like.
Puts that in the
money well
finance
spent.
agenda.
I mean, if we got money that.
Something like this, that would be a matching fund of probably half to a third of what the cost of something like this could be. I'm not finding a lot of projects running under 100,000 for completion. A small splash pad is over $150,000 right now. Just
Sorry, as of right now, what the city council did push into the economic development fund, we're sitting at 158,000 right now, but we've got targeted or designated right now for that facade grant that we're thinking about $40,000 earmark for that right now. So this is your economic development budget to use for projects like this, consulting or whatever else you want to do with it.
I feel that the public ideas would be valuable now, and if we, even if it turned into, we could always follow up if you shared that it's fairly inexpensive to do a QR code on a mailing on utility bills. It seems that more data is never, I just generate ideas, and you just mentioned the splash pad, and I think we would get all kinds of random ideas from the masses.
So if that's the case, if you want to do some type of survey, I guess I would want, what questions do you want to ask the public going into that?
Maybe have a picture of that area that, consideration for development, what would we looking, what direction you want to go in?
What could the city put down here to make you want to bring your family down here and spend time downtown? Something along those lines.
Is it actually 3 different spaces? There's 109. There's the open lot. And then there is 203, 205.
So there's 3 lots in between the 2 buildings here.
Yep.
There's the 1 lot here. There is an existing right-of-way alley here. There's some utilities in here. So some, like Ginger said, very complex site that, we would have to determine, can we relocate these utilities? Are they necessary to be there? Can we put something over the top? Obviously, to be determined. There's some major water and sewer utilities that run on South Water and Smith Street in this area here. Then you also have these parcels here. The city owns 103. We've got this little right of way in here. We own the 109. This has got a number on it. It's got a parcel number, but not an address. This little area in here, and then these areas here as well.
So it's big space, but it's kind of disjointed.
Well, I want to thank everyone for their comments and discussion. I think it was very productive just to hear everyone's comments. I think at this time, maybe we should do a little bit more research. I think, with being at placemaking, there's a lot of grants available. Maybe we need to dig into some grants to offset some of the costs before we jump into this. But I definitely think it's worth researching further. Nothing that has to be done tomorrow, but like Hans said, maybe reach out to SC Swiderski, see if they're willing to, fund some of it as well. Maybe they, it's going to directly affect them with that being so close to them. So.
Would you want us to put together some survey? We'd work together about some survey questions and bring that
Absolutely.
back as a follow-up to the next meeting?
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be next meeting, but definitely, keep it on the back burner to keep researching. And once we have the necessary tools, as far as, if we can get some grants, maybe get some public input, maybe at that time we can bring it back.
And I think along with survey questions, we need to have some community education on this. I mean, we're all struggling here looking at the lots and looking at what pieces of property we can do placemaking with, and we haven't even, a lot of the community doesn't even know what placemaking is. So do some educational pieces on what placemaking is for the community and while surveying what they would like to see.
Anyone else have any other comments? Move along to discussion number 6, consider an upcoming schedule for the advertising on the city Highway 45 billboard. This was brought up by Bill at the end of last meeting that we are putting a new wrap on the billboard out by the highway, and we thought maybe doing a 5-year rotating schedule of billboard themes and subjects to keep the billboard fresh and interesting. I know those wraps aren't terribly expensive, so if we did 6 months or a year, keep it, nowadays people don't have the attention span they used to. If we keep rotating it, I think it would be so I guess I'd look to see what kind of direction we want to go, if we can get a 5-year plan of this year we're doing build in New London, I believe. I know we had Tristan bring a bunch of different ideas to this committee a couple months back, and I don't know if we want to kind of think about ideas of a 5-year plan of just a direction of the city. We can always change it if need be, but at least have it in place that if we don't, the city has a direction to go in every year. So
Yeah,
We had discussed to possibly bring the school district into the discussion, and the school district and tourism switching off. And they're able to take advantage of that opportunity as well.
it wasn't so much of the image or the direction, it was, we have considerable amount of time when it comes due that we have to allocate that. Yes, do we want to repair it? Yes, we want to repair it. Do we want to rebuild it? Yes, we want to rebuild it. Then we have to do it during its, I don't know if it's frozen or the water level's low. So it was more of, can we do something that allocating, yes, we'll do the repairs as the company suggests. And I don't know what that time frame is, just if we could allocate something saying, yes, we will do this, and then it would maybe take that portion out. I don't know if I'm wording it right or wrong, but it seems like we spend a fair amount of time deciding, yes, we want to do it, and then we get to the next step.
So they don't have to come to us.
Better,
Every year
better
and
direction
ask.
on how to move forward with
They've
it.
already got the money available and they can just go.
Yes, because we want to keep it. It's been shared with us that we won't ever, from what I understand last time, is they won't grant another billboard. But this one's grandfathered to be repaired. So if we take it down, they would not allow another one. But April brings up a good point about getting the others involved, so.
And we share the billboard with the tourism committee or whatever, so. Do we want to rotate just that side of the billboard or rotate all three into it?
I think it makes more sense to get both wraps replaced at the same time, cost wise. So we would definitely have to rope the commission and tourism commission into deciding if they want to do it yearly, 2 years, what have you, and then also bring the school district in, because I know Scott expressed interest in also taking advantage of it, and that would alleviate some of the expense for tourism.
So I guess, what you're proposing is the tourism side rotate between the school district, or would you have the city as well rotating?
I think they should rotate together. What that timeline is, I think all three of us need to kind of decide collectively. So I think we need to bring more people into the discussions.
And I have to triple check, because this is a government billboard, it can't name out specific businesses or even organizations, because we can't have it like name out Shamrock Culver DW, just because of the way it's set up right now. So even with the school board
district,
involved, we
maybe.
have to make sure that if they use it, their advertising conforms with whatever, hopefully that
Right into
can be
that.
done creatively to stay within those lines of what the requirements are from DOT. But it's got to be a general community focus or advertisement.
So I guess what I would propose is maybe bringing this discussion to the marketing committee, where the school district is always also part of it. I can take this discussion to the tourism commission and report back.
Be okay with it if we want to put this on the back burner for next month. I originally had it in my head that we would kind of go through just a direction of where the billboard we want to go. This year we're doing build because there's a lot of construction in town. I thought maybe, at the end of next year, we'll have the downtown. We want to highlight the downtown. In 2026, maybe we want to highlight the industrial park, bring businesses here, or, that's kind of where I was thinking about going with this. But if you want to,
I think that's still a good idea to have give Chad some direction on, which way to go with the billboard. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't overstepping and doing the billboard on different years and just staying on the same page.
I think for now, this committee can look at the themes like Tim was talking about. I mean, what are the themes you guys want to look at advertising for the future? Downtown, the industrial park. You guys can still make a laundry list of what those themes are, what year they get plugged in, what timing with the potential school district and the tourism, to be determined, but at least you can kind of get an idea of the process rolling of what do you want to market about the city on economic development focus realm.
I like what Tim was saying, definitely 2025, like we're open for business, like our downtown district, we're ready for.
just want to comment that when you and I talked, the billboard company that does the wraps could also do the designing for us, because I know we're in the middle of, Tristan has left us and we're in the middle of designers. So if we just come up with an idea, direction for them, they could design and give us ideas as well. And like I said, if we could pin down a couple different designs for a couple different years, that way we don't have to bring it back every year. They have a direction. If we want to, hey, something big is going on, let's highlight that. We can just push that one off and plug it in there, but at least there's a direction for a 5-year plan.
That's a great idea. Almost if they would do a contract type deal, maybe we'd be locked in at a price from a little bit of hedging from inflation and say, okay, they come to us and say, okay, per your agreement, your contract, we're ready for a new wrap. what do you want on it? It's a really good idea.
So if anybody else has any ideas, otherwise we can always bring this back. There's no rush. We have our design already coming this soon, right?
Yep, I contacted Zay and we are on schedule for the end of next week.
Wonderful.
The installers right now, so hope for dry weather until then.
So like I said, I don't want to put everybody on the spot. If everybody wants to go home and kind of think about ideas to bring it to the committee next month, I think that would be awesome. So we'll continue with this discussion next month, unless anyone else has a comment or concern. All right, moving along, item number 7, updates and reports, business updates from April.
All right, just got a couple business updates for the committee. The first is new business Mindful Movements Yoga Studio. It is actually opening tomorrow. She's done a couple pop-up yoga options throughout town. She partnered with Events Everlasting and Longevity Nutrition. Mindful Movements Yoga Studio is in the former Wolf River Lawyers area, and they still have office space available in there as well. So it's in 213 West North Water Street. Next new business is New London Star Market LLC. I was able to stop in there. This is in the plaza over by the former Piggly Wiggly, 1931 North Shawano Street, Suite 200. I was surprised to see how much grocery was in there. I knew specialty meats and cheeses were in there, but I was very surprised, pleasantly surprised to see how much grocery they were carrying. You can see some coffee in that one picture, lots of different spices. And from my understanding, they have some hot beef, beer, wine, and pizzas that are coming soon. Business expansion update, Tyson Foods let the city and chamber know that in March 2024, they would like to have a very small private ribbon cutting. They have invested $50 million into a new hot dog line. And from my understanding, it's going to have more AI than their typical lines, some more automation. But in her quote, she said this just solidifies that Tyson Foods is here to stay in New London, which was wonderful to hear. Business support. So I think everyone in the room is familiar with the Main Street Bounce Back grant that we had. It ended in December 2022. This was a $10,000 grant that businesses were able to take advantage of if they took over a vacancy. People really missed it when it went away, and we thought it was kind of dead in the water, but there's been some talk that they may bring this back. So Chad and I are just keeping this on our radar, because if this comes back, this is when they initiated this the first time, they backdated it quite a bit. So a lot of businesses that were already in place were able to apply and receive that that $10,000 grant. I believe 18 businesses just in New London alone were able to take advantage of this. So this could be huge if it were an ongoing source of funding. I also learned today about a grant called Backing Small Businesses grant program. This opens up in March. There's a very small window to apply. From my understanding, it's for existing businesses that have a project that they would like to complete by September 2024. So we'll be putting that out in our newsletter for businesses to take advantage of if they qualify. Next is commercial listings. Nothing has changed here. We still have Hilby's and Grand Cinema Theater listed. This is a list of all the business tours and visits that Chad and I have on our calendars for January, February, and March. So we are out visiting any business that would like to tell us anything that's going on and give us a tour. We make it clear to them we don't want to be in their way. We just want to learn more about their business and how we can support them. So we've done quite a few of these on the list already. We're going to Ellsworth tomorrow. So it's been a busy quarter. Any questions?
Are there, I mean, it wouldn't be me, but are there other members of the committee that also would like to go on some of these business check-ins?
Sometimes the mayor comes. We've invited the mayor before. He's coming to Tyson and Ellsworth tomorrow. I don't know, you want to go on a tour?
I don't. I would love to, but I don't have time. there's other people that had an interest, like, could you share the dates that you're going?
Sure, we
As
can
long as it's okay
coordinate.
with the business too.
Yeah, and usually I just open it up and I say it's the city and the chamber. And we can coordinate. I don't see why not.
This is just one of our outreach and try to make contact with businesses and just communicate. So it's one of those things that the council has way at the beginning when I was hired, gave direction, we want you to do this, and obviously the
This
chamber.
is part of my guidelines for my board of directors too, that I have to be out visiting with businesses.
But if there's any interest, I guess just talk to us inside and kind of coordinate the best we can. Obviously, I don't know if we want to bring a 20-person group to every business unless they want to, have something like that. Look into that.
So no other questions for April. We'll have the city administrator's report from Chad.
So on February 1st, April and I, we attended a Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation roundtable on placemaking. Good timing for everything. And it was also on placemaking in underutilized spaces, kind of hand in hand. The very interesting point right off the bat, not surprisingly though, the placemaking and underutilized space conversation and the roundtable was just that the WEDC people basically brought up the point, and then everybody in the room who was in attendance kind of just networked and talked about it. It was very interesting that the placemaking and underutilized space conversation quickly led to dealing with childcare, transportation, and housing. It was just canning that this is something that these are the three big talking points of the state and placemaking, and it just went right to those big three talking points with economic development challenges. So I did include the talking points for everything from those meetings. The WEDC wrote down the talking points. I did include those in your packet, so all those talking points are in there if you're interested in looking at that. One interesting point that I pulled out was some communities are paying for foot traffic data location software. April and I were sitting next to another community that has this, and they utilize basically cell phone data to understand how many people are coming to their special events. So that might be something that we might be interested in the future of either obtaining that service or partnering up with some other organizations in our community for that service. Wouldn't it be nice to know exactly how many people, cell phones, I guess, that are coming to Irish Fest or Fall Family Fest or some of the other special events that we have in this community? Not only it tells you where they come from, but where they're going, what restaurants or locations they're going to. So you don't get the individual, Chad went to this place. It's just macro data. It's kind of scary that Big Brother is watching that much, but there's data we can pay for it and get a hold of if we want to look at getting some of that for future consideration in the future. And then April and I just talked about the meet and greets that we've got going on right now. One thing I didn't have in my packet, and it just came through today, Nicole got an email from the state, and every year our assessor needs to provide information to the state of how many housing units we've had in the city. And it was interesting to see that we got an email back from the state saying, hey, your numbers show right now that there was a net increase of 71 housing units in New London in 2023. There might be something that we got to confirm with that number because our assessor had a little bit of an error with 4 units. So I don't know if that number of 71 is actually perfect. It might be 67. I got to figure that out yet. But the point of this is that we reported right now 71 housing units. The state came back and said a more typical net change for your community would have been -14 to up to 36 housing units. Please confirm that your report changes are accurate. So the state is saying that, yeah, you should have about, a couple negative up to about 36. We had double of that in 2023, which is interesting to note that outpacing what the state is kind of anticipating. I have no clue how they get their data, where they're anticipating that, if that's past trends for our community. But just interesting to note that we're outpacing. So the things that we're doing, the TIDs that we created, The outreach that we've done, looks like that we're outpacing what the state's anticipated net growth for housing units for New London should be. So, that's all I got.
Anyone have any questions for Chad?
Chad, that must be how, like Swiderski and these companies, when they build in an area, go with that data, how many people are moving into areas, how they can say they're already rented already? Is that where they get some of that information from? Is that how they do that?
This is just actual housing units, so it doesn't say if they're filled, it just says
Okay.
we've added this many housing units. And if these numbers are right, it was 8 single-family housing units, 60 apartment units that were in the 3 or more structures, that's Retzloff's apartments down there, and then 3 mobile homes that were added. So those are the numbers up to that 71 right now.
Is that where they get their projection? That they say that if they build this many units here, that they'll be occupied in a certain amount of time? There must be some data they get from somebody.
As of right now, every housing unit that's opening up, they're filling up right away. So whether they're looking at, the population changes with that, I don't think so. I think this is just strictly looking at the housing units that New London has, this particular data. Census data is gonna really look at better the census population changes. That's.
Just curious, because I know when the places come in, like Swiderski and stuff, they say, we got them all rented. Or the guy in Ortonville, Swiderski's over there, said, these are all filled up already before they're built. So someplace they must be getting some information or something from somebody that they can make these projections.
I don't know.
But that's interesting that they're doing that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know that they're actually even projections. I think that it's reality. I know a person who had rented or had leased an apartment with Retzloff and was waiting for it to be completed. Like they were just sitting there waiting to move in before it was even done being constructed. It was full. Yeah.
And to your point, you're correct. This is actual data, not projections.
Yeah.
This was 2023 units that were added.
That's awesome. It's pretty encouraging news that our city is well and growing. View potential agenda items for future meetings. I just want to make a point that you had mentioned the big 3, the childcare, transportation, housing. I'd love to dig more into those. If anybody has ideas or any discussion points, please reach out. If we can get those on the agenda, maybe we want to start talking about those. If those are such, you talk about placemaking and they go right to those. So it's like that. Obviously, people want to talk about it.
Mhm.
So maybe that's something we need to start looking into more. So I encourage everyone, if you have any ideas, reach out to me or Chad, or put it on the agenda for future meetings. Does anyone else have any potential agenda items?
This past month, I've kind of been digging into Hans's idea at the last meeting about potentially developing like a soccer or multi-sport complex on the north side of town. And I talked to some of our youth coaches here, and then one of the teachers at school. I think his title is like Fox Cities Youth Soccer Director or something like that. And some of our soccer players too. And it just sounds like there'd be a lot of support for that, just because they use like Parkview and Hatton, and it just doesn't sound like it's super optimal. And then also like we're matching with soccer players, we're matching Greenville's numbers, and they're a decently larger size community than us. So it just sounds like there might be some room to grow that program and like bring vendors in for the tournaments and stuff. Just from what I've heard, like we can't really host anything here. And it sounds like there might be room to improve our program too.
I also have an idea. I heard a couple people bring up tonight that there are grants out there. There's grants out there, but there isn't a lot of time for people to write grants and do the follow-up work. In 2020, Wapaka hired a grant writer. They had a funder that came in with $50,000 and said, I think that the city, the chamber, and the school district should come together and hire a grant writer. And in 2 years, that grant writer was able to write $2.7 million for the city of Wapaka. $2.7 million came into their community to support those 3 different entities I think it would be really valuable for this committee to maybe talk to the grant writer's name is Greg. Maybe have Greg come in and just give us a presentation on what he's been able to do for the city chamber and school district.
I think that's, yeah, I think that's a great idea, April. I think it's something that's gonna be needed moving forward with all that we've got going on with the developments with Hatton Park, with the Newton Blackmore Trail, with the museum, with the library, with possibly getting a soccer, field going, all the different things that we're looking at here in New London and the growth. I think that's a great, fantastic idea, quite honestly.
No, I was just gonna say, basically the same thing that Linda was gonna say. I mean, there's more than we've been talking about here. I was also thinking of the museum and the library. I mean, those are real and present needs that are going to have to be met very soon. I mean, not just like pie in the sky things we might do, but things we are going to do and need to do.
Absolutely. I think that's a great idea. Thank you for bringing that up. I will definitely have that on next month's agenda. If not discussion, maybe we can bring him in and have him talk to us.
And then to go back to Wyatt's point, you have the Parks and Recreation Chair and Parks and Recreation Director here. That would be something to go to the Parks and Rec Committee. So if you guys want to talk about as a future agenda item for that committee, so be it.
Write it down. Got it written down?
Yeah.
Otherwise, if there's no other potential agenda items, or we can review the next meeting date. We got March 26th. Okay, with March 26th. Is there any other comments or concerns? Look for a motion to adjourn. Motion by April, second by Bill to adjourn. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried.